Once upon a time, there was a kind girl named Cinderella. She was known for her gentle nature and her unwavering kindness, which shone through even in the most challenging times. She lived in a big house with her stepmother and stepsisters. The house was grand and beautiful, with tall pillars and lush gardens, but it never felt like home to Cinderella. They were not very nice to her. Her stepmother and stepsisters often treated her poorly, making her feel like an outsider in her own home. They would laugh and chat amongst themselves, leaving Cinderella feeling lonely and sad. Cinderella had to do all the chores. From dawn till dusk, she scrubbed the floors, washed the dishes, and made sure the house was spotless. She cleaned, cooked, and sewed. Every meal that was prepared, every piece of clothing that was mended, was done by Cinderella's diligent hands. She worked hard all day long. The endless tasks left her exhausted, but she never complained. She carried heavy loads of laundry and swept the floors until they gleamed. Despite her hard work, Cinderella always tried to be happy. She found joy in the little things, like the warmth of the sun on her face or the sound of birds singing outside the window. She sang to the birds. Her sweet voice would fill the garden, and the birds would gather around her, chirping along as if they understood her songs, and talked to the mice. They were her friends. In the quiet moments, she would share her thoughts and dreams with them, and they would listen attentively, offering her comfort and companionship. Even though life was difficult, Cinderella never stopped dreaming of a better life. She would often gaze out the window, imagining a world where she was free from her burdens and could live happily. She held on to hope in her heart. No matter how tough things got, Cinderella believed that one day her dreams would come true, and she would find the happiness she deserved. One day, the king announced a grand ball. The entire kingdom buzzed with excitement as the news spread far and wide. This was no ordinary ball. It was a celebration of the prince's return from a long journey. The king wanted every eligible young lady to attend, hoping his son might find a bride among them. All the young ladies were invited, including Cinderella's stepsisters. They spent days preparing, visiting dress shops, and discussing the latest fashions. The stepsisters were particularly thrilled, dreaming of catching the prince's eye. They were very excited to go. The house was filled with laughter and chatter as they tried on gowns and jewelry, imagining the grand night ahead. The stepsisters could hardly contain their excitement, each convinced she would be the belle of the ball. Cinderella wanted to go to the ball too, but her stepfamily laughed at her. They mocked her dreams, reminding her of her place in the household. Cinderella's heart ached as she watched her stepsisters leave, knowing she would be left behind. They said she couldn't go because she was just a servant. Cinderella spent her days cleaning and serving her stepfamily, her dreams of the ball fading with each chore. She felt trapped in her own home, her spirit crushed by their cruel words. Cinderella felt sad, but then something magical happened. Her fairy godmother appeared. In a burst of light, the kind and gentle fairy godmother stood before her, ready to change her fate. Cinderella could hardly believe her eyes. With a wave of her wand, the fairy godmother made everything beautiful. The room filled with a magical glow as the fairy godmother's wand worked wonders. Cinderella watched in awe as her surroundings transformed before her very eyes. She turned a pumpkin into a carriage, mice into horses, and even the simplest objects became extraordinary. The fairy godmother's magic knew no bounds, and Cinderella's heart filled with hope and joy, and rags into a sparkling gown for Cinderella. Her tattered clothes transformed into a magnificent ball gown, shimmering with every movement. Cinderella twirled in delight, feeling like a princess for the first time in her life. Cinderella could not believe her eyes. She gazed at her reflection, hardly recognizing the elegant young woman staring back at her. With a grateful heart, she thanked her fairy godmother, ready to embrace the magical night ahead. Cinderella arrived at the ball looking like a princess. Everyone stared at her in wonder. No one knew who she was. At the ball, Cinderella danced and laughed all night. She met the prince, who was charming and kind. They danced together all night. Cinderella was having the most magical time of her life. She forgot all her worries. The clock began to strike midnight. Cinderella remembered her fairy godmother's warning. The magic would wear off at the stroke of 12. Cinderella rushed out of the ballroom, leaving the prince behind. In her hurry, she lost one of her glass slippers on the steps. Cinderella rushed home, the magic fading away. She was back to her old clothes, but her heart was full of joy. The prince was heartbroken when Cinderella disappeared. He had never felt such a connection with anyone before, and the thought of never seeing her again filled him with despair. The grand ballroom, once a place of joy and celebration, now seemed empty and cold without her presence. He found the glass slipper and promised to find the mysterious girl who fit the shoe. This delicate piece of glass was his only clue, a fragile link to the enchanting evening they had shared. With the slipper in hand, he made a solemn vow to search every corner of the kingdom until he found her. The prince went from house to house, searching for the girl who fit the slipper. He traveled through bustling towns and quiet villages, knocking on countless doors and speaking to many families. Each time he held up the slipper, hoping to find the foot that would fit perfectly into it. He was determined to find the beautiful girl he met at the ball. Her image was etched in his mind, the way she moved gracefully across the dance floor, the sparkle in her eyes, and the warmth of her smile. These memories fueled his determination, giving him the strength to continue his search despite the challenges. Cinderella's stepsisters tried to fit into the glass slipper, but it didn't fit anyone. They pushed and squeezed their feet, hoping to deceive the prince, but the slipper remained stubbornly unyielding. Their frustration grew with each failed attempt, but the prince knew that the true owner of the slipper was still out there. The prince began to lose hope. The endless search was taking its toll, and the weight of disappointment was heavy on his shoulders. He sat on the castle stairs, the glass slipper in his hand, wondering if he would ever find the girl who had captured his heart. Yet even in his darkest moments, a flicker of hope remained, urging him to continue his quest. Section 6. A perfect fit for happiness. When the prince arrived at Cinderella's house, her stepmother tried to hide her. But the prince saw Cinderella and asked her to try the slipper. It fit perfectly. The prince was overjoyed to find Cinderella again. He recognized her kind heart and beautiful spirit. Cinderella and the prince got married and lived happily ever after. Section 7. Kindness always shines. Cinderella's story teaches us that kindness is a treasure. Even though she was treated poorly, Cinderella never stopped being kind. Her kindness shone through, and in the end, it was her kindness that brought her happiness. Remember to be kind to everyone you meet. You never know how kindness can change a life, even your own. Section 8. Dreams do come true. Cinderella's story also teaches us that dreams do come true. Even when things seemed impossible, Cinderella held on to hope. She always believed in a brighter future, and in the end, her dreams came true. Never give up on your dreams, no matter how big or small. Keep dreaming and believing, and you'll find your own happily ever after. Section 9. Cinderella's story, your story. Cinderella's story is a fairy tale, but it reminds us that magic exists in our world too. It's the magic of kindness, hope, and believing in yourself. So go out there and let your kindness shine. Chase your dreams with all your heart. You are the author of your own story, and it's going to be amazing. The end.